Hey, it's Chris. So, best games of September 2024. Where are they? What were they? And why are they there? Now, again, best is going to be an asterisk here. And truth be told, we're going to talk about the best ones. We're also going to talk about some concerns, criticisms, or lows in addition, because it's always easy to talk about things we're hyped up and hot about. But sometimes our hobby needs a little bit of a reality check too, right? That's why I'm here. Let's go. Let's do it. So let's start with crowdfunding, right? Let's start with crowdfunding. What were my winners? The best of September on crowdfunding. Truth be told, you know what? We got to start with it. Cyberpunk. Go on board. It may not have been your ilk. It may not have been to your desires in terms of mechanics with the real-time sort of crawl-esque scenario-driven expansion rampant game. But I give kudos where kudos is due, because you don't raise that much money with a bad premise. But therein lies the biggest question mark of this in the first place. It's a premise. I worry about overhead with a real-time, rules-laden game that a scenario aspect shown as not anywhere near a final project is going to leave you as a gamer. Because I don't see this as a super solo game. I worry about this at the higher player counts, at the having too much downtime in that real-time element. If you have, say, an Achilles heel of someone with analysis paralysis compared to the rest of the group. I think the expansions were a decent variety. I worry about the cross compatibility of them and the power creep that was going on with some of them in the first place. When you've got characters that are specialized or almost solely with one color comparatively to slight specializations and tweaks and modifications here and there. I worry about scenario variability. I worry about the end game all time mode or whatever they were calling it there of the create your own scenario generator essentially. When you're only giving me so many scenarios to begin with that I'm, concerned about balance, and then you're just going to allow me to mishmatch them and have literally over half a dozen different little trinkets that allow me to change slight tweaks of game modes to go along with it, adding items here, adding characters here, adding whatever to go along there, drones and things like that. Because that speaks to just, I don't know. Are you trying to dumb it down in a good way to make it simplified to get people to be able to get it to it in the first place? Or are you taking out elements that people are going to then look at down the line and say, well, this should have been in there every single time. I don't even know why we wouldn't play with this at all. And it's one thing if that's included and you just choose not to play with it or include it. But it's another if you then also put it in a stretch goal box that people at retail can't get very easily, or you put it in a stretch goal box that is sold for obscene amounts on the secondary market, alienating some of your non-crowdfunding fan base, right? And the other question that I had along with this that I don't think is ever going to be answered is how much of this Cyberpunk-wise was crossover, right? Crossover from people that just love the IP nostalgia-wise. Don't say that as a bad thing, but I always say, you better love the game you're getting, not just the IP that's with it. If this was a mechanical, I don't see blind taste testing, don't know thematic incorporation sort of scenario, like I said with Grim Coven, you got the blinders on and you can't see that this is Cyberpunk and you get to see these experiences and these mechanics. Are you as enamored with it once the blindfolds come off? That would be the major test of the game as a whole. I love the idea of real time. I love real time games, but it's going to be tricky. It's going to be tricky. So I give them kudos regardless, but it's not without concern. This one's not as popular, but we're going to stick with it. Spooktacular, quick shout out, level 99 games. This game's going to end my collection. I don't really need some of the extra add-ons and the deluxifications that went with it. As sort of a light, monster-driven, I just like what it's offering. So it's another game from level 99 that I think is going to fly completely under the radar. It's going to be a dark horse, and I think it's going to overachieve for people that like that sort of thing. I don't think it's going to change people's minds. I don't think it's going to be, the most mechanically interesting, deep Euro style whatever that you're going to see. But I think, if you can play it in under an hour and it's all ages and all skill level adaptable, right? I love the sort of offering that they're going along with that. So have to mention that one. Raw 25th Century Games, Raw and Traders with the Pharaoh reprint. I don't know how I feel about this one yet. The question that I raised when it crowdfunded, I said, can you improve on perfection? Raw is arguably one of the most perfect games made. I don't think too many people are going to argue with that. Of course, I'll have a couple of you in the comment section now that I said that, just to be argumentative or just to be contrary, right? Contrary for the sake of contrarians. But it's one of those games where, as an auction set collection style of things, there's not really super great alternatives. Almost everybody that plays it likes it. Maybe I'm, in an echo chamber, but I think it's that good. And the question is, do you need to add more to that? Not can you add more to that? That's always the difference in these situations, right? If you go to the doctor's office, they can always put you on more medication. The question is, do you need to be on that medication, right? That is what this is for me. And off the top of my head, I have to, transparency-wise, say no. Is that going to stop me from getting it? I didn't back it on crowdfunding. I'm also worried that I have to get my matching Pharaoh edition now. And that's a lot of money for an expansion that, again, not going to say it's bad by any means. I have no idea. But it just goes, do I need it? Because I am perfectly and utterly content with the way it is right now. And I can't say that about every game. I said that earlier this year about Veil of Eternity. I said that a little bit with Far Away, where I said, you know what? It needs a little bit of something. So that would be my question with this more than anything else. Then we have to go over and we have to talk about Heroes of Might and Magic 3. I mean, again, I did the should you backs on all of these. And if you're raising that much money, you're doing something right. Again, I would say similarly, though, with this one, just like with Cyberpunk, how much of this is crossover? Because a lot of you guys that commented on that video, a good number, more than I would have suspected originally, said, hey, Chris, I really love the video game, or made a reference to the video game in the first place, one way or the other. That worries me. Again, a lot of people said gameplay. Yeah, Chris, gameplay knocks it out of the park, but agreed that the rulebook was terrible. And that's a big thing for me nowadays, truth be told. I mentioned this briefly, like when I do the crowdfunding roundups, and when I'm learning these other games for review, right? How many of those can you do over a period of time, a period of relatively limited time? And the answer is at some point, folks. Like when I do these roundups, I burn out. I have to stop myself filming and talking and thinking and reading about these things because it's just overload. And when I have 4 of these games that are, 50, 60 pages long, right? It's like being the person who owns the one versus all games. Great games, love to play them, but if you're always the one and you're always having to be the one to teach, and if you're always the one that has the much harder rules slog comparatively to everyone else, if you're that person in your group, you know what I'm talking about. Always having to be that person. And that's tough on this side of things if you think about it from my side, if that makes sense, if that comparison analogy slightly works. Call it a Liegeism if it doesn't work. Puerto Rico. Here with Puerto Rico, I have to say, Awaken Realms, thank you for separating stuff out. Thank you for giving us a little bit of content expansion-wise with this. At the same time, those boats and those fruits and those miniatures, I just look at it as complete inaccessibility. This is looking very pretty on the table, but the functionality of it is worse than Castles of Burgundy. Castles of Burgundy is a game that's only going to sit on my floor and be lugged out to my kitchen table back and forth. It's never in the rest of my life going to make it any further than that. And if that's what you want a game for, it's fine. It's never going to make it to game night. It's never going to make it to game group night. It's never going to make it to FLGS night, whatever, whenever, however. It's also going to be, if again, I'm being really transparent, sometimes, especially with all of the deluxifications, this is going to be in one of the upcoming unpopular board game opinions. I am less and less convinced that inserts are half as useful as they are proposed to be. They make everything fit nicely and seem very tidy in a box. Very few inserts actually make it that much meaningfully faster for me to get it out, play it, and via the setup in between. And this is no exception to that. But going back to Puerto Rico, is this a lifestyle? One of your, this is the key, right? Puerto Rico is an all-time great. Ra is an all-time great. But similarly, are they your all-time greats? Ra, I can make the argument that I can get to the table and play that. Super easy. The box is surprisingly not that large at all, given the deluxifications. And it bars or has no barriers to set up, even though it was deluxified. How many Euros, Amerithrashes, Crawls, anything like that can you actually say that about? I have my deluxe Andromeda's Edge sitting outside this room right now. I have been reluctant to actually open it up and try and digest the organization of this thing. Because with things like this and Euthia, it's not getting any easier. In fact, it's getting harder and harder despite the deluxifications of the materials and the shapes of those inserts in the first place. And the other thing is with Puerto Rico, I really hate this trend. And I have to, this is not at Waken Realms. This is not at anyone particular. But screw you to remakes that don't need remakes in general. El Grande needed a reprint. I'm sorry, Puerto Rico did not. 2 years old, slight gameplay. I'm sorry, like I do not like this trend in general as a whole. I will call it out. I will speak to it. I've seen mega deluxe versions. Can you imagine right now? No, this would never happen. If they put out like another complete remastered artwork edition of something like, I don't know, Quacks of Quedlinburg. How would you feel about that? Would that actually be something you'd be interested in? Something that really needs it from that style? So that would be something, wouldn't it? It'd be something. Or say a different edition of something along the lines of Marrakesh or that aspect, which we've already seen like, I don't know, 4 editions of in like less than half as many years, essentially, is what it seems like. Ooh, essentially, you see what I did there? It's the essential edition. That's what concerns me. It's like Hollywood going back to Batman, because we can remake the Batman and Spider-Man intro movies lore ad nauseum with a different actor each time, and people will pay money to go see it. Eventually, it becomes Joker 2, which, that's a bomb, folks. So there's that. I've already covered too many as the best of the crowdfunding here, but again, a couple shout outs that I have to give. Lands of Galzier doing more of the same. Dinogenics doing more of the same. Rayman, big question mark there, doing better than I thought, so I give them some credit. And then things that I'm going to wait to have judgment on, like the Anarchy, Scarbray, Speakeasy, as well as Nature. So those are kind of big question marks launching at the end of the month, so we're going to hold those over until, well, November's look back at October, I guess. So let's talk about the best of the month, right? Let's talk about the best games that I have played this past month. And truth be told, mechanically speaking, that impressed me the most, it's not going to be for everybody, I have to say Mass Effect. I'm really impressed by that game. And the other kudos that I have to give is they could have gone crowdfunding with this, right? Very easily. And I really like the fact that they did not go crowdfunding with this. They only put in a few miniatures. It's a little expensive for what it is. You know, just like with, and we'll talk about this when the, individual should you back video comes up, or maybe the don't back anything video, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. You're paying a price for an IP that is familiar. You are. It's true. Are you okay with that? Because the game is solid. And I saw this term used to describe it the other day. Beer and pretzels. Hate that term. I still feel like that is derogatorily used. And I'm not sure if it was derogatorily used in this case. I don't think so. But it just made me go, oh, it just makes my skin crawl. Because some people, because of the previous use of that, are going to make that assumption regardless, and it's going to turn people off that probably would like this in the first place. Yeah, it's got some randomization. The spawning is going to screw you on some missions. The character abilities, I worry a little bit about you optimizing if you're a min-maxer. But it's fun, and you can string together a few missions really quickly. It doesn't overstay its welcome. I played something 2-player tonight with some asymmetry that was longer than these missions, and I was a little surprised. In a good way, but this one was also, a game we'll talk about next month. But that was sort of my vibe with it. And I really, really enjoyed it. I played it pretty much solo as well, which I was really concerned about in addition, because if you've played any of these crawl, skirmish-esque vibe games, they are not easy or even notorious for being incredibly difficult to manage multi-handed, not necessarily two-handed, or not with you because you're a pro, right? But, layperson picking this up and going, I have to manage 4 characters, and because you do have to play with 4 of the 5 characters every time, it was not nearly as difficult to manage that as I was fearing. It's a little bit of rules minutia. It's not bad, though, comparatively again, because they could have made this more complicated. But more complicated is also going to be less accessible. And I think the accessibility of this game is going to win people over, because when you now ask me for my favorite IP or some of the best video games that have been done on the tabletop side of things, this is going to be up near the top of this list, right? This is going to be rising to the cream of the crop. Not because it's the most, but right, it's sort of got your wingspan. This is going to appeal to a lot of people. It's going to work well with people who haven't played this before, but it's going to be enough for those that have. It's a very nice middle ground in that way. Secondly, right, I covered it as well. Emberleaf. I feel that strongly. When I put those videos out there, right, you can accuse me of clickbait or hype, but I feel that strongly. I think relatively speaking, now I'm going to miss something, and so I'm going to make a fool of myself here, but Euro-wise, especially of the crowdfunding ones I've done, it's my favorite. Overall, Euro-wise, I'm probably forgetting something. New-wise, Euro, I think it's my favorite. I really like the aesthetic. I like the card sliding vibe. The combo chaining really works. Yes, I hear you. It's expensive. Yes, Mass Effect is expensive. I understand. No qualms. No argument. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is expensive. But what I see is you're picking and choosing. You're cherry picking, right? Chip Theory is expensive, right? Your CMON pledge is expensive. Somehow you can afford those. So you know what? You can afford these. But if you're not in love with it, don't do it. No matter how cheap or expensive it is, because it has to get played and you really have to love it from that aspect of things. And if you don't, that's okay. But let's not pretend that some of these are all of a sudden, this is super expensive. That Chicago 68 game, all basically cards, was $68 for cards. I didn't see people shouting from the rooftops with this, but this is raising a bunch of money. It's from a publisher that's well known, so therefore I can say it's too expensive. But if you were truly indie, this wouldn't. That's the dynamic that pisses me off, because I don't see that. So yeah, it's that good. Cascadia Rollings, they're good. I like them. You need the mini expansions. Said this, in 2 or 3 videos now that I'm talking about this or bringing it up. I really enjoyed them. My wife enjoyed them. My wife enjoys roll and writes in general, so I knew that was going to be a relatively good hit. But I would say the mini expansion is absolutely necessary to go along with it. Do you need both of them? Absolutely not. I think they're too similar. I think I would have, as a flat out games semi-fanboy, not fully fledged member yet, I wish they would have just completely made them separately different. I mean, that's my current problem or concern with the near ending at the time of me filming this Railroad Tiles from Horrible Guild. I'm looking at that and going, well, 6 expansions, Railroad Inc. As I see people all the time saying, which Railroad Inc. do you play? I play this one. Or how do you differentiate the expansions? You can't until you have them all. There's absolutely no way to figure out which ones you're going to like. And this bundle of, speaking of things of expensiveness from Railroad Tiles, I mean, it looks gorgeous. I would love this much more than Railroad Inc. But that's a heck of a lot of money. And again, I'm not sure the differentiation is there for me in that same way that I would have loved with Cascadia. I would have liked to see some more asymmetry between the animals, even between games. So I would just love to see a little bit more, just venturing a little bit further out on the ledge with that one. So it's very safe. It's very good. 4 maps is a great amount. And the amount of cards that you're flipping through, you use essentially, you have 15 level 1s and 15 level 2s. You use 10 of each of those levels per game. So you're going to mix match and have some variability there, and you can combine them. But the essential die, for example, isn't really terribly as different as I'd like to. So it's fine. It's fine. Is it going to go anywhere in my collection? No. Am I actually going to probably pick up the mini expansions? Yeah, I am probably. Would I sell one of them and not really feel like I lost anything, especially if I bought the mini expansions? Absolutely there as well. Let's go to Japan. I have it sitting right here next to me, actually. Right before this or right after this is going to be a combined video of about 6 games that I'm reviewing all in one. And this game right here, I'll be honest with you, it was a game I looked at on crowdfunding, and I said, I'm not going to get it on crowdfunding because I don't need the little dishes that they had, acrylic or whatever it was, because it was like 110 or 120 or whatever dollars, right? That's a insane amount for deluxifications that offer no actual meaningful gameplay extension. For me, Flat River Group sent me a copy of this through AEG, and I was like, okay, I'll try it, set collection. You know, I just have a bad feeling about it, right? Like, I'm just not gonna, I like it. It's actually very solid. The tactical nature of having to put these 3 cards on each single day to make sure it matches to the randomization of the token, and then layering of them in the strategy wise of which one's going to be on top to actually get you the end of, well, round bonus, it really works. Having to travel between the 2 different places and pay the tickets if you don't, plan wisely even between the days on a, round by round, day by day basis. The draft of, grabbing and choosing and passing works. It just works. Again, it's one of those where I think maybe the slight asymmetric mini expansion is a necessary thing just to give it a little bit more legs for me, just because I like the asymmetry from this. But this is one of the best surprises of the year, probably, that I guess not just from a gameplay standpoint, but from what I said, I'm not really sure about it, to, yeah, this is pretty good. Then the other game that I have to mention, I got sent to me again as a copy, and this was a little indie game called Rune Masters. Basically, you've got these 4 little tracks, and you draw a bad guy card every turn, and you got your little heroes in the middle, and you're die rolling, and then you put the die that matches the little bad guy symbols, and if you match all the symbols, they get knocked off, and they slowly tower defense to the middle. And the mechanics are super simple, and they're not terribly like super great, to be honest with you. But at the same time, my kids really liked it. So if my wife would have paid attention at all during the rules explanation and wasn't on her phone the whole time, she could have helped the 4-year-old, but we helped the 4-year-old and they all had a great time with it. So it's not going to be like a world beaters game. It's probably not even, I would say, dare as good as Pandasaurus's Courtesans from earlier this year in terms of my love for a family, lighter style, kid-friendly game. But I also can't see myself in good conscience getting rid of it now because my older 2 got into it and they really liked it. The dynamic of some of the cards is just a total crapshoot, and it's probably going to irritate me over time from that aspect. But for right now, for what it is as a next step up, and from a cooperative standpoint, like, I don't play enough harder things with my kids to get them like ready, even my 10-year-old probably, for like Dead of Winter. I really need to do that, but their attention span, folks, is not there. This is a 40-minute game, and it pushed it to the end because also the turns were going slow, and then somebody gets a little impatient because the turns are so slow, even though they know what they're doing, I know what I'm doing, and it just happens. But, right, it's like why I haven't gotten rid of Valley of the Vikings. because the kids love it, and I think I would break their heart if I got rid of it. Not that I don't want to necessarily get rid of it, but that's besides the point. So that is where my head is at. That's what I've played. There's a couple others that we'll be talking about shortly in another multi-game review that we'll be doing in near future as well. So to go along with that, maybe some Seventh Citadel, some Blood, as well as some Black Rose Wars next month. So if those intrigue you and you want to know whether or not you should be pledging, late pledging, or looking at them very heavily, well, tune in, subscribe, thumb it, and let me know what you want to see. So that's all I got. Have a great freaking fantastic day. Stay classy. Thanks for watching.